Welcome to another webinar of the Media Freedom Rapid Response. Today, our topic is Satire on Trial, the case of Leman and the shrinking space for media in Turkey. And with me today, there are our guests, Zehra Ömeroğlu, cartoonist and former contributor to Leman magazine for over a decade, Sinan Gökçen, program officer at Civil Rights Defenders and also a journalist, Terry Anderson, executive manager of Cartoonist Rights International, Emre İlkan Saklıca, Turkey Program Coordinator at the International Press Institute, and I am today's moderator from ECPMF, the Media Freedom Monitoring Officer. For Turkey's political and social life, satire has always played a key role and has been located at the core of development of free expression practice in the country, yet satire and humor have often been met with intolerance, censorship, and even violence. As early as the 17th century, the prominent Ottoman satirical poet Nefi was executed for his heavily critical verses. During the later Ottoman era, cartoonists and satirists, alongside journalists, had to go on exile due to strict censorship during 30 years of rule of tyranny. During the Republican era, under each government, critical voices, satirists went through severe pressure, often leading to closure of magazines and imprisonment of writers. However, in the last 20 years, this pressure has reached to unforeseen levels. Cartoonist Musa Kart of Cumhuriyet Daily had served a total of 14 months in prison for his political cartoons. One of his cartoons depicting Erdogan as a cat in 2004 was the first one targeted by Erdogan. Multiple magazines over the years took up on the line that Musa Kart had set and depicted Erdogan as various animals, all leading to court cases. The most recent example is the Leman magazine that has been the target of violent mobs upon the government targeting the magazine that led to raiding of their offices in Istanbul and arrest of 5 of their staff. As we begin this webinar, we hope to foster a constructive conversation on these challenges and reflect together on how satire can continue to serve as both a mirror and a safeguard for rights and liberties, as well as a look for the way forward in terms of growing solidarity with the free words and lines. And for our audience, please do not hesitate to post your questions through the Q&A box on the Zoom screen. And welcome, dear guests. I would like to start with a question to Zehra. So first of all, Zehra, congratulations on your acquittal, on your trial that has lasted for 5 years. You were in the vicinity of Leman headquarters on the night when the raids took place. Could you give us a brief overview of what happened that night?
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you, Gürkan, for celebrating my acquittal. But I don't know if it's something to be celebrated because, unfortunately, the prosecutor didn't accept the decision, and he appealed the verdict and took it to the Court of Appeal. So I have no idea how long it will last, but it's obvious that it will continue for some months or some years. And I don't know if the second result decision will be also acquittal. But thank you. To be honest, I was really happy and felt relieved after the acquittal, after it was announced. But unfortunately, this country doesn't let you to remain happy for more than some days. Sadly, on the very same day my acquittal was announced, a cartoon that my friend drew in Leman. It was published in Leman about, I don't want to say Mohammed cartoon, but it's known as Mohammed cartoon, so I don't know how to name it. The same day this cartoon was published, and as you mentioned, yes, I was around Leman. I was around the office. It was the most terrifying things I have ever seen in my life. Actually, I thought we were used to these kind of attacks because we experienced this in Leman before, after the July 15 coup cover of Leman. That attacks happened, but this time it was totally a different scale. As I said, I was in that area this evening, and I learned from a friend's phone call, a cartoonist friend. He called me and he told me that something is going wrong at Leman. And I couldn't understand at first what the scale was. I really didn't know, and he didn't know also, but we were so worried, and I was very close to the office, and I wanted to go warn my friends and check what was going on. I went to the street of Leman, and it was hard to tell, actually. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was a big group of radical Islamists, and they were like shouting like slogans of Sharia and some religious slogans, you know, and they had this flag of Sharia, and they kept telling that they want to kill us, or either they will die or we will die. You know, they kept threatening us. All the cartoons. It's and there was police there, but it was very sad to see that the radicals were even chatting with police. So you know how Taksim is, how Istiklal is. They don't let anyone in this area for any kind of demonstrations in 1st of May or any important days. But this time they didn't interrupt at all, and these people like burned the building. They broke the glasses and the windows and all you know, there's a kitchen and a cafe in the first floor, and it was all destroyed and gone. There were no windows, you know, left. And they tried to climb the building. It was so terrifying, so scary. It reminded me of Madımak massacre, where around 40 people was killed. It looked exactly the same, and again, the police stood by for too long. It was one of the. They were. I can tell that they were really very well organized there. It wasn't just okay, let's go and burn it. No, they were very well organized. They were obviously like part of a group. They knew what they did. The slogans were like everything was planned. And at that point, I was really shocked. I was shocked there. I have to tell this. I couldn't even move. And after a while, one of the radicals started staring at me. His gaze was very scary. He started really staring at me, and I thought, okay, I felt really scared because I thought, okay, now they know who I am, because our photos and names were like being spread on the internet as like we were targeted. So I thought, okay, they will now attack me personally. And then he started to talk radicalist like next to him, and they started to stare at me very badly. And then it kept going on like this, and I was so scared, and I decided to leave that street. And between the police buses, you know, I started to hide and just run away. And I found a cafe in a terrace, just as a quick solution, because they thought they can follow me. And I waited there for maybe more than an hour, and police still didn't do anything. These people kept like praying in the streets, breaking the like glasses, attacking the building, and it has took so long. And then finally the police, I could feel the tear gas, you know, but it was so long, you know, after maybe 1 or 2 or maybe 3 hours in total, the police finally decided to stop them. So it was when the gas reached me, as you know, I felt really like suffocating, and I had to cover my nose and everything, and I tried to run away. So I think the crowd was there for maybe an hour or more, and still the street of Leman is still being kept by the police. It's still closed because of the financial investigation also.
The whole
So
night was really a terrible experience, and we have also been able to see the live broadcast from the streets. But I would also like to ask Emre. This raid started, and the arrest wave against cartoonists started with a smear campaign that also included members of the government. What role do you think the public smear campaigns and social media outrage play in legitimizing state action against independent media outlets such as Leman?
Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Media Freedom Rapid Response and Gürkan for hosting this important webinar. And many thanks to Zehra as well. She captured this striking situation with great clarity. Let me start by setting the scene. We are here to talk about what happened to Leman, one of Turkey's most iconic satire magazines. But this story is part of something bigger, growing pressure on independent media. Before we go into what happened in this particular case, let's remind ourselves why satire and cartoons matter in the first place. As we all know, cartoons are a powerful art form that share ideas directly and boldly. One of Turkey's legendary cartoonist Oğuz Aral described satire like this. Humor is a space where all taboos can be challenged. It always has a rebellious spirit. We can add to this, anyone can dislike a cartoon or criticize it freely. But the Leman case tells a much bigger story, one that carries many messages about freedom of expressions. The Leman case isn't the first example of this, and sadly, it probably won't be the last. Leman published a cartoon, as we know. The first thing to point out is the role of social media reactions in the Leman case. Social media drags us into a loop. Whatever we feel, anger, fear, we just keep seeing more of it. The first step is an angry post filled with hate speech that algorithms love. A cartoon in Leman is targeted, shared repeatedly by a specific group, and suddenly it turns into a wave of hostility. One angry post becomes a storm. Here is how that backlash turned into something much bigger. Next, polarized and mobilized crowds emerge. The magazine gets labeled a threat to religion or national security. And once it looks like everyone agrees, shutting it down becomes easier. People responded different ways. Some feel fear, others react emotionally. Let's focus on these two for now. The platforms amplify both emotions. Hashtag campaigns start, anger grows, and in the end, one side is filled with more rage, while the other is consumed by more fear. Now imagine this happening not once, but again and again for years. One group's called traitors, another get labeled terrorists, or even worse. People start seeing each other with growing suspicion and as if they are enemies. This can create the perception that official actions are inevitable or widely supported. In reality, society might not have had this demand at first, but by the end, a consent is created and intervening against a media outlet becomes justified. This makes the next intervention easier. The problem is there. But there's another side to this, and it's one we at IPI hear all the time. We speak with journalists across the country in interviews, roundtables, private conversations. The message is often the same. We are anxious. We second guess every word we write. We don't know what line we might cross next until it's too late. Lemon is the symbol, but this anxiety is the norm. We hear from many journalists who say they live in constant uncertainty. They are worried every day about what kind of legal trouble might come next. And the Leman case, it's proof. Your newsrooms can be raided. You could face a coordinated backlash or public pressure campaigns. You have to watch every word you write or draw. That's why defending press freedom is not just about protecting journalists. It's about protecting the public's right to know. Without free media, societies lose the ability to hold power to account, and that is something none of us can afford to ignore. This isn't just about Leman. Let me quickly highlight how this pattern has affected others too. Let me give you a few recent examples. Just last week, the Contemporary Journalist Association reported that one of the education directors had his office renovated with a private bedroom. That story led to the detention of two journalists, Gençay Karafazlı and Şenol Öksüz. Their phones and computers were seized during a police raid. They were later released after giving testimony. Cumhuriyet Canoğlu is under investigation over his coverage of irregularities in a national exam. One of the courts blocked access to new pieces by Bir Gün Gazetesi and MLSA Türkiye. Each of these stories served the public interest. Each of them was met with the punishment. Let's go back to Leman, because it pulls all pieces together. First, targeting by social media and officials, then manufacturing public consent, next, justifying interventions, and finally, the crackdown itself rates censorship and penalties. Let me end with this. One day, when people look back, they might say this was done to respect public sensitivities. But we have heard that before, time and again. And the cost is always the same. A silenced voice, a shrinking space for dissent. The Leman case shows us clearly and painfully how smear campaigns and social media outrage can pave the way for the silencing of independent media.
Thank you, Emre. And we have seen, as you said, over the years so many times, the Article 216 of Turkish Penal Code, the law on incitement to hatred and violence being used against media and journalists over and over again. And there are also other laws that are a rather new phenomena in Turkey. But Sinan, I would like to ask you the next question. How would you assess the legal framework currently used for targeting satirists and cartoonists, such as those involved in the Leman case? And what impact do these have on human rights protection?
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity. First of all, we cannot talk anything regarding Leman case and others in a legal framework. It is beyond that, things are not developing in the nature of the legal processes and legal logic and legal regulations. We are talking about a political process. Whatever happens in Turkey at the moment, including forest fires, should be understood within the context of political situation in the country. We are in a situation where the governing leadership, Erdogan's leadership, is losing grounds. And according to several polls, they are the second party, not the leading party anymore. And he wants to stay in the power. And starting from Syria, the policy to whatever policy should be understood within that context. He wants to stay in power. And he's employing and deploying all possible resources to keep himself in power. In a democratic society, rule of law is the governing phenomena, right? But Turkey was, despite its challenges and failures, we had some type of a rule of law regime in this country up until, let's say, mid-2000s, 2010, etc. After 2010, etc., we started to move to rule by law instead of rule of law. We started to move to rule by law. But after the coup attempt in 2015, we are totally in a space where it is ruled by decree or conspiracy. So in a legal society, in a society where rule of law prevails, first there's a crime, right? And then you collect the evidences and it leads you to a suspect. But in Turkey, first, we have the suspect. We name someone, we target someone, as Emre described very well. There's an algorithm of it. And then we put this person in prison. And then we attach a crime to that person. And then we create evidence. This is the case for Osman Kavala and many journalists and a lot of people, and so we are not talking about, let's be very clear, we are not talking about a legal procedure here when we talk about Leman case, because we are not governed by rule of law. We are governed, we are in a society where the law is used to intimidate, to silence all type of dissidents. It's a tool. It's not a mechanism to remedy, to bring justice, etc. But it's a mechanism to keep dissidents any type of dissidence. And during 90s, for example, the dissident type was a bit different. Now anybody, housewife just tweeting something can be taken from home at 5 a.m. In the morning. And also, as Zehra mentioned, like Istiklal, I live very close by to Istiklal Street. LGBTI movement, women rights movement, Saturday Mothers. Whenever any dissident voice appears on Istiklal Street, if there are 10 people, 2,000 police officers would be there, and in 2 minutes, everybody would be detained. So it's very difficult for me to talk about laws here. Yes, we have laws. We have articles. The Constitution protects. Actually, if this Constitution is implemented fully, we would address almost 95% of our all human rights issues, because they are protected. We have the freedom of expression, we have the freedom of speech, we have the freedom of assembly. But I've been detained a few times when I attended Saturday Mothers, how to say, vigilance. We were 10 of us, there were 200 police officers. So this is a deliberate political move, not angry mob came together and attacked Leman magazine. This is a political activity, actually, keeping as an ammunition just in there. I want to mention something. I believe Özgür Özel, the leader of Republicans People Party, his immediate reaction was very key and important. For the first time in Turkey, we heard a politician not serving to religious concerns, etc., but very openly and courageously, he said, I don't accept this attack. So I believe if he played the game as usual in Turkey, when it comes to religious issues, social concerns, etc., the things would probably or maybe take a different direction. But his stand, his very clear message was a key factor. We shouldn't forget that in Turkey, the media scene, in media architecture, 95% of media is controlled by government. So we are talking about a very small minority here, and Leman is one of them. I, as a journalist in the past, in old Turkey, as they say, covered Özal, then Prime Minister or President, I forgot, Demirel, opening exhibitions composed of the cartoons, making fun of them. We came from that point to this point. This government doesn't have any humor. They don't understand humor.
Intolerance definitely has been on the rise. Sinan, I would like to interrupt you for a moment to ask Terry, because...
Last sentence, if you allow me. I believe none of these people who attacked Leman on that day saw that cartoon that they were angry with. They were, how to say, guided with some emotions by some, I don't know, by some groups of people.
Thank you, Sinan. So Leman has been target of coordinated smear campaigns and supposedly legal case, but Terry, Leman is not an isolated case in Turkey, and looking at it from a global standpoint, what patterns do you see in how cartoonists are being targeted for their work? And is it possible to say that there is a pattern globally that is targeting cartoonists and satirists?
Hi there, good morning. The short answer is yes. If you want a little bit more detail, and I want to completely agree and associate myself with what Sinan just said. Obviously, any incident where a humorous magazine is targeted with accusations of blasphemy or insult to religious sensibility, the mind immediately goes to Charlie Hebdo 10 years ago now. And it's not actually an apt comparison, because whereas the merits of those cartoons are obviously debatable, and as previously mentioned, you are completely within your right to object to the content and protest them if you wish. categorically what those cartoons were about was the portrayal of the prophet. That was the point of the exercise when they originally appeared in Jyllands-Posten and in the Danish press. That's what those cartoons were about. The cartoon that just appeared in Leman magazine recently was not a portrayal of the Prophet Muhammad. So any attempt to categorize that as a willful, deliberate misreading of it, and therefore, as I say, I would argue that the protests are fallacious in their argument and are very, very much a political exercise. And in that respect, it does fit the pattern, in fact, because 10 years ago, when I started this kind of work, the fear that was engendered by the Charlie Hebdo attack was definitely the most pressing concern. A decade later, that has largely abated, and the number one problem that we contend with now is the prospect of criminalisation by a authoritarian or otherwise oppressive government. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. The recent case that it reminds me of the most, in fact, is a publication, El Talk in Cuba in 2022. Cartoonists there were accused of crimes that are very similar to what is now being levelled laterally to the staff at Leman. These accusations of accepting foreign funding and, in essence, to act like a fifth column or otherwise fomenting unrest and dissent in the country. 3 staffers, cartoonists, there at El Talk were forced to make confessions that were then televised, confessing to being, in effect, mercenaries, the same thing, accepting money from abroad to speak ill of the government there in Cuba, ending their careers, in essence. It's impossible, to work after something like that, and ultimately forcing them to leave the country. So I would suggest that what we're seeing right now is an effort to destroy the magazine. I think it's that serious.
Thank you, Terry. And Zehra, over the years, your cartoons have also received a fair share of hateful comments, as recent as their last few months even. What was your personal experience over the years as a cartoonist navigating through the red lines, censorship, or backlash?
Just sorry. So sorry. Actually, I had, as you said, I experienced many, I've been attacked online many times from all kinds of people and vegans, LGBT groups, not only the government and Islamists, even accountants. Can you imagine? Even accountants, Chamber of Accountants lynched me and tried to cancel me. So there's no way to escape this. There was no way to escape this. I started this profession maybe 13 years ago. There were always people who were susceptible to kind of different topics. But what's been happening for maybe 5 years or 10 years is completely different from what we were experiencing before. I mean, I think this is something the government, it's kind of polarization, it's kind of polarization, and there's no way to escape it. You asked my personal experience. I have been judged for 5 years, as you mentioned. This is one of the legal side. But rather than that, we know what how will government react to our cartoons or our political cartoons or cartoons about like just daily issues, like I've been judged with like moral issues. We know this, but what we are not used to is that we are not used to the reactions coming from the public, coming from the people. So the surprising thing for me was to face this. For example, I was, one time lynched on social media because I drew meatball. Can you imagine? Vegans lynched me and they tried to cancel me because I drew something about meatballs. So it's crazy. Or flaxseed, not flaxseed, it's something, I don't know, some kind of seeds, just some herbs, because they say there's an hadith about it. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to know about all the hadiths. So there is no way to escape. But what happened in Leman in the previous weeks was totally in a different scale, and it was I don't want to be repetitive, but it was exactly same as Madımak. This was something very different. It's different from canceling, just trying to like not to publish your works. It's something different. They kept like repeating that they want to kill us, you know. So it's very, very terrifying, and it's led me to a point that I cannot do my profession anymore in this country, very sadly.
It is absolutely devastating, really, to see the growing intolerance and from, as you said, from all kinds of groups in society, to see calls for limiting expression, limiting artistic free expression. But Terry, I would like to come back to you now. There has been this mention of how satire must have limitations by the government authorities or other interest groups or any kind of social group, not only recently, but each time there has been a crisis related to a cartoon, these calls have been mentioned over and over again. On the other hand, satirical art has always pushed boundaries, and this has helped society digesting some ideas, some thoughts. Should there be limitations, in your opinion, to satire? And if so, where should the line be drawn between freedom of expression and offense? And who would draw this line?
Again, short answer, no. Detailed answer. It all depends by what instrument you mean. So self-evidently, humor is subjective, and it's dependent upon a great deal of context. So a joke or a satirical observation succeeds or fails depending upon its timing, its content, and where it is seen and by what intended audience. And that's really a big part of the problem for cartoonists in the 21st century, where, of course, their work can be deprived of its original context very easily, shown to audiences that were never supposed to see it, and therefore either genuinely or disingenuously misinterpreted. An offence can be caused. An offence, as I say, is a personal reaction. I don't think you can legislate for it. I don't think you can avoid it completely. There's always going to be somebody somewhere who could take offence at a given cartoon, if not on the basis of their religion or their personal beliefs, their philosophy, their politics, what happened to them during the course of the day. You know, from my own personal experience, I happened to have a father who at one time in his life worked in a bank. His bank was robbed. He had, loaded guns pointed in his face. It just so happened that later that evening, there was a comedy program on the TV, and there was a comedy sketch that involved a bank robbery, and he was upset by it. And naturally, he would be upset by it, but it's personal. So the danger comes from laws. The danger comes from instruments that are either overly broad or overly severe in an attempt to curtail these kind of forms of expression. Softer rules of thumb or editorial mores are obviously going to affect what cartoons get published in a particular country. Here in Britain, the cartoons that you see in the newspapers would not be seen in the United States, because in Britain there's far greater tolerance for things like blood and toilet humor, and these things would not be shown in an American newspaper. But likewise in continental Europe, the cartoons that they are often portray nudity and sex in a way that would not be shown in a British newspaper. So these things vary all the time, and it's a kind of softer power taste applies to those cartoons in terms of what is deemed acceptable or not. But there's certainly no law here saying that you can't have a person portrayed in a particular way in a cartoon. We'll probably later in the discussion come to the singular person in Turkey who has a problem with cartoons. But I don't want to sidetrack the conversation too much at this stage.
And great comparison, really, Terry, that nowadays also looking at the global discussion around South Park and how the uh, discourse is growing around satire with the intervention into media affairs from political side. It seems like it is going to be on the agenda for quite a while now. But I now would like to come back to Emre from this point of view regarding intervention into satire and political control of media. Some people say that this latest wave of arrests against cartoonists and raids will be instrumentalized for spreading the already pressing control over media. What can we expect in the future, and whether you think that the target will remain as cartoonists, or would it be? It would be interesting to know who might be next in line. Has there been any part of media that has been left untouched in Turkey yet?
Thank you, Gürkan. To answer that, let me break these down into two parts. First, I'll walk through what happened step by step. Then I'll connect it to wider trends we have seen across Turkey this year. We are looking at a multi-layered strategy. Step one, public backlash. Statements by public officials appear to coincide with possibly fuel. Then online pressure. Step three, the judicial response. Detentions followed swiftly with images of cartoonists in handcuffs shared widely. This raised concern among observers. At the same time, the magazine's issue was confiscated. Step four, financial pressure. A financial investigation was launched against Leman, adding yet another layer of threat. First point, criminalizing journalism is the problem. More and more journalists are being accused of serious crimes, not for what they do illegally, but for what they report. Charges like terrorism or disinformation are used in ways that raise serious legal concerns. As MFRR partners, we have tracked these closely, as you know. The allegations Leman is facing mirror those brought against other journalists. Two, censorship and content blocking. News bans are no longer rare, they are routine. Take the Kartalkaya fire, for example. Coverage was restricted. In the Ekrem İmamoğlu case, social media was blocked for days. Hundreds of accounts were silenced. The same happened with Leman. Access to their content was shut down almost immediately. Three, financial and administrative pressure. This is the important part. Targeting media outlets financially is one of the most effective ways to silence them. You may recall the recent Agent of Influence bill. It was withdrawn after public backlash. But the concern remains. Foreign funding is often portrayed as suspicious, and Leman was no exception. The financial probe is part of this trend. Taken together, this shows us something very clear. We are not seeing isolated incidents. We are seeing a coordinated, systematic approach to silence independent media. And Leman, it's a snapshot of that system in action. But let's also ask, is it getting worse? Think about the escalation we saw in the Leman case: social media backlash, office protests, arrestments, financial investigations, and excess bans. When we look back at the past year, Açık Radyo example, Sözcü TV, now Tele1, they may still lose its license. After Fatih Altaylı's arrest, his media outlets faced pressure almost overnight. These aren't just isolated events. They form a growing list. And behind all of this is another force we can't ignore: deep social polarization. In Turkey, debates over politics, religion, migration, even football quickly become all or nothing. No room for nuance. In the Leman case, this polarization was weaponized. So what does all this mean? The Leman case brings together every tactic we have seen used to suppress the press in recent years, all in one story. It shows how fast a media outlet can be isolated, attacked, and punished, even when they have done nothing unlawful. But this isn't just about Leman, this is about what comes next. Let me leave you with a couple of questions at that point, ones we should all keep asking. What new strategies can we develop to protect freedom of expression? Or can we be sure this won't happen to another outlet next week? We don't know.
Thank you, Emre. And that raises another question, and I would like to ask Sinan about this. We know that the European Court of Human Rights is not really accepting all complaints due to sheer number of the complaints coming from Turkey. And in the absence of international legal focus on the protection of journalists in Turkey, how can international civil society and rights organizations respond most effectively to this type of targeted pressure? And I would also like to ask what we consider, what forms of solidarity are most needed at this time for media in Turkey?
First of all, I mean, yes, there's a problem with the European Court in accepting the cases due to the large number of applications. But the main problem here is not the court. The main problem is implementation of the rulings. I mean, there are some major cases, Kavala, Demirtaş, Can Atalay, etc. There are very clear rulings by the European Court of Human Rights, and Turkey do not implement. So whatever happens in European Court, if you don't implement them, what is the point of going to the court? Despite the constitutional article, I think it was 90, it clearly states that international agreements are above even the constitution. So we are facing a government which doesn't implement international regulations. As I said before, Turkey is party to many international covenants in human rights, etc. And Turkey's constitution and several laws are quite sufficient to prevent any type of, how to say, human rights abuses. This is it's not the problem is not the laws and etc. Regulations. The problem is implementation, because any autocratic regime targets the truth. This is the first target of any autocracy. And then they start to target conveyors of the truth, journalists, academicians, and civil society actors, human rights defenders. And we witness all these processes in this country. So it is difficult to talk about legality of the process and how international mechanisms may help, because we have many talented lawyers, human rights lawyers, who are using all possible channels, including UN mechanisms, other European mechanisms, European Court of Human Rights, etc. But as if the policymakers and policy implementers do not respect these decisions, etc., what is the point? In terms of solidarity, before I go there, I want to say one more thing. The problem here is the selective implementation of the law itself. Like, I personally do not challenge a mass protesting a Leman cartoon or any publication peacefully. This is their democratic right. The problem here is, imagine if 200 people went to Yeni Akit newspaper to protest an insulting cartoon, what would happen? I guarantee you 2,000 police officers would appear there immediately and beat them and arrest them, etc. So in a democratic society, everybody has the right to protest something. The limitation here is the violence, call for violence. And also another limitation is those who are on public payroll cannot make any comments, zero tolerance. They don't have any freedom of expression. If you are on public payroll, no minister can make a statement. No, even if you are working for the tea, distributing tea in a public building, you cannot make any comment. I have the right to make comments as long as they are in peaceful and not calling for violence and so on and so forth. International solidarity, we have two major issues here. First of all, probably, as you know, the funds supporting Turkey's civil society, human rights movement declined severely in the last couple of years in Turkey. This is a major problem. So solidarity requires resources. And international partners, our colleagues, our comrades, must understand that we are facing the challenge of survival here. Many human rights organizations will close down probably by the end of this year or next year. So this is a major issue. And second issue is like visa problem. We cannot even go to Brussels to talk about a project, EU-funded project, even if you are the coordinator of the project. A visa process is an insulting process in Turkey now. And what we expect from our international colleagues to support us on these matters, create resources, pressure on your governments to give or private donors to prioritize Turkey and visa process. Other than that, of course, collegial relations, partnerships, etc., are always happening, but it's becoming more and more difficult. So creating resources, not only financial resources, but creating resources is crucial here, because Turkey's relations with EU is now have three parameters. Refugee issues, keep refugees and do whatever you want in your country from a European policymaker's perspective. Second, commerce. Turkey is 60% of the economic relations that are with the EU zone. And now, after Trump, defense, European security, with a huge army. So I am very sick of reading and hearing an EU commissioner, whatever, a EU person, making a statement that they are deeply concerned. I don't want to make you concerned. Don't be concerned. Do something. And there are many ways to do something. But what we all hear in the last 5-6 years especially is European governments, EU, are deeply concerned, very concerned, extremely concerned. Don't be concerned. Do something. Because if you support these policies, they will continue. There's no other way. Unfortunately, as Emre mentioned, or you mentioned, Gürkan, there is a tendency in the world towards a far-right agenda. No European country, NGO, or Satire magazine should think that the rights that they are enjoying now are granted. Any minute, they can be taken back. We witnessed this in the US, and there's no guarantee that this is not going to be the pattern in many other democratic societies. So we are facing a global challenge by far-right agenda, and we should act together without borders and in solidarity, because it's like a pandemic. It's going to affect everyone. No one is immune from this ultra-far-right agenda. To sum up, to respond to your question in one sentence, international solidarity is very important. It requires energy, resources, and mechanisms. And there are many international mechanisms that we can apply, like European mechanisms or UN mechanisms, etc. But as long as we have a government who doesn't implement these, we have no place to go.
Thank you so much, Sinan, for once again bringing it to the global scale. And as our primary topic today is Leman and cartoonists, Terry, I would like to ask you again. Cartoonists reach a very wide audience, and thus they become a significant target in various countries, in addition to Turkey. Would it be possible to talk about what types of support or protection you feel are most crucial for cartoonists working in high-risk environments?
Of course. Again, I want to associate myself completely with what was just said by Sinan. I think that all those comments were absolutely correct. The danger for cartoonists now is that as they are increasingly dispensed with by media outlets, either because it is felt that they are too much trouble frankly, that they bring too great a risk of, again, causing offence or incurring legal action or otherwise bringing strife to the outlet in question, or they're too expensive or what have you. They are more and more frequently not an employee. They are self-employed, they are freelancers, they are isolated, they don't have a relationship with an editor or a staff. They are far more now akin to any kind of other visual artist than they are necessarily with their colleagues in journalism. And that makes them far more vulnerable, of course. So the important thing for anybody who wants to pursue cartooning is, again, what you might call soft or discreet networking. Make yourself known to other cartoonists in your location where it is possible. It's not possible everywhere, of course, but where it is possible, if you can join a trade union, whether that's a journalism and media union or an arts union, such things do exist, and many of them admit cartoonists, then that's advisable, because through trade union membership, you would perhaps have access to material benefits as well as legal advice as and when it's needed. And failing all of those, the important thing, of course, is to make yourself known to an organisation like mine. So we have Cartoonist Rights based in the United States, Cartooning for Peace based in France, the Freedom Cartoonist Foundation based in Switzerland. These are organisations that exist with the explicit mission to help as much as we can when a cartoonist encounters the kind of problems that we've been describing. As a practical point, however, what I always say is to any cartoonist, as important as it is that you are aware of these organizations and this information, it's arguably even more important that somebody else in your life is aware of them. So whether that's your spouse, a sibling, your best friend, whoever it may be, because in the worst case scenario, you won't be the person who's in a position to make contact. If you're detained, if your devices are confiscated, or you're otherwise rendered incapable of communicating, it's important that there is someone else in your life who knows where these organizations are and how to contact them, so that they can take action on your behalf if it happens. A last quick comment about Turkey. Zehra has been very modest, typically. She is the winner of our award. Our organization gives out a Courage in Cartooning award every year. She is our winner this year. With each passing month, it becomes more apparent to me that it was the right decision and how deserving she is, particularly considering the grace with which she's received this recent news about the appeal against her acquittal. She is the third, however, she's the third person of Turkish nationality to receive our award, and the only other nationality that has recurred that often in our 25 years is Iran. So the crisis in cartooning in Turkey, and I would describe it as a crisis, Turkey's cartooning tradition is long and rich and comparable to many other European nations. It has been severely degraded to an extent where it's becoming increasingly impossible, really, for any cartoonist to pursue a career in Turkey. And what I will do, it probably won't be possible now, but for the sake of the notes after this webinar, there's a very excellent essay written by Yilmaz Ojdil at the time of Musa Kart's imprisonment a few years ago, that very well illustrates the whole history of Turkish cartooning and the ways again that it has been attacked over the years. But of course, as I alluded to earlier, the problem right now is not blasphemy. Blasphemy has come up a few times. The closure of Girgir magazine, for example, had an element of blasphemy to it. But the real problem that has occurred again and again and again is criminalization on the basis of insult to first Prime Minister and then President Erdogan. He is singularly thin-skinned and has a real problem with cartoonists and their portrayal of him. And obviously, from that has just been transmitted from the top down. So under his regime, we have seen a severe degrading of cartoonist freedom in Turkey that is virtually without match anywhere else.
Thank you so much, Terry. And also, as Sinan explained earlier, Turkey used to be a country where presidents would attend the opening ceremony of an exhibition regarding the cartoons about themselves. And the growth of intolerance has come to unimaginable levels at the moment. My final question goes to Zehra again. Zehra, I would like to ask you how you interpret the latest attack against Leman, not in a political sense, but in a personal and artistic one.
First, thank you, Terry, for your kind words. And I want to emphasize once more that it's very important to know about these organizations that supporting cartoonists, because when you really when you are in such an important case, under threat, for example, it's very important to know about these organizations who will support you in any way. I mean, so it's important for us also to make people, cartoonists, know about these organizations. And coming to your question, Gürkan, that was a very life-changing moment for me, to be honest. I mean, in all my years of doing this work, I never once considered living or working abroad. I'm drawing for France and some other media, but I always thought that was something temporary, you know, because I know this country's culture and dynamics and like humor, sense of humor very well. And I always thought that this is the country that I have to draw my cartoons, produce my work. But when I saw those people like shouting that wants to kill us, destroy us, it was a really life-changing moment for me. Maybe I'm too emotional right now because it's quite new what happened there. Maybe my thoughts will change, but for now, it's the first time that I said, okay, who are we drawing for? No one wants our cartoons. No one wants this profession anymore. I know this is very sad opinion, but this is the truth. I mean, for the first time in my life, I decided to maybe go abroad and work abroad, not permanently this time, not temporarily this time, permanently, because I cannot find any space to draw, and it was very harsh to see all these people, like my friends getting arrested. And you know, it's very absurd, but these people, most of them, like 3 of them, are totally irrelevant from the editorial content of Leman. Zafer Akmar, for example, our former managing editor, didn't even know that he was on the list and he was going to be arrested. I called him maybe 20 minutes before his arrest, and he didn't even know about what was going on, and he told me that he's nothing to do with Leman for many years. And I said, but Zafer Abi, they're going to take you too, they're going to arrest you, be careful. And he laughed because he couldn't believe, because he did nothing. I mean, he wasn't working for Leman. But then after 20 minutes, I saw him like handcuffed violently. We all saw this on the news, and it was so horrible. And also Aliya he was our accountant, you know, he did nothing with the editorial content. He was an old man who made this accountancy works and who paid our money, blah blah. So he didn't even see the magazine until it was published, you know. And he was so old that, you know, it was a very sad moment that the police went to take him and they want to band him, you know. Maybe you remember his like, maybe you have that image that he was being arrested, and police wanted to band him, to handcuff him. He was so old and so surprised that he couldn't even bend, you know. It was so sad to see him like this. He was a 70-year-old man. So all these, also Cebrail, they say graphic artist, but Cebrail doesn't even see what's inside the speech balloons, you know, bubbles or balloons. I don't know how to say it. Anyway, he never sees it. He just colors it or puts the right place in the page. So they arrested all these people, and they're having they're in a difficult condition in the jail now in Çorlu. I know about them. Of course, it's very sad for me to witness all these, and I don't know how I will stand all these, how I will find motivation to draw more. I really don't know how to help these people to get out of jail. It's very sad.
All our hearts are with them, of course. And thank you so much, Zehra. And thanks everyone for your valuable comments. And thank you, our dear audience, for joining us today in the Satire on Trial, the case of Leman and the shrinking space for media in Turkey webinar. This webinar has been organized by the Media Freedom Rapid Response. The MFRR tracks, monitors, and reacts to violations of press and media freedom in the EU member states and candidate countries. This project provides legal and practical support, public advocacy, and information to protect journalists and media workers. The MFRR is organized by an alliance led by the European Centre for Press and Media Freedom and joined by Article 19 Europe, the European Federation of Journalists, Free Press Unlimited, International Press Institute, and Observatorio Balcani Caucaso Trans-Europa. The project has been commenced in 2020 and is co-funded by the European Union. And today we have hosted Zehra Ömeroğlu, cartoonist and former contributor to Leman magazine for over a decade, Sinan Gökçen, program officer at Civil Rights Defenders and a journalist, Terry Anderson, executive manager of Cartoonist Rights International, Emre İlkan Saklıca, Turkey program coordinator at the International Press Institute, and I was moderating today, Gürkan Özturan from the European Centre for Press and Media Freedom as the Media Freedom Monitoring Officer. Thank you for joining us.